Peace and blessings, family. It is yours truly, Amari. I am the founder of El Kebalan Uni Alliance, where we focus on your spiritual, your physical, and your financial well-being. My queen, Amani Mari, is the co-founder. I'm also your serial entrepreneur. My queen, Amani Mari, is the executive director of all of the businesses that we have. Synergetic Network Group, LLC. We are a community liaison for entrepreneurs and consumers. And El Kebalan Lifestyle, where we provide African men's clothing for those men who want to outwardly express their pride of being African. Also, we have women's accessories as well for the women who want to do the same. And I thank you so much for taking out the time to tune in to this program on this evening, where we're going to talk about worthy or unworthy, worthy or unworthy. You know, I've been in some relationships where the person just thought that, predicated upon them being my wife at the time, that they were just worthy of the benefits just based on that fact, not due to their conduct, but just based on the fact that they're married to me, and they're my wife, that they just warrant me to help. And some people, they have a sense of entitlement. And we're going to talk about worthy or unworthy on tonight. It's going to touch on a few facets of life. So just stay locked in right there. I believe that those who are listening will get something out of this message on today, because these are real life situations that I have experienced, and from my observation about what I've seen within the community as it relates to holding people accountable as well. So we're going to talk about that on tonight. We're going to talk about whether or not someone is worthy of our help. I heard a statement before that the universe helps those who help themselves. Well, let's look at that from more of a cultural accountability standpoint. We're going to look at that from a totally different perspective on this evening. And we should only help those who help us. Okay? Only those individuals who help us. We're going to talk about that on this evening too. Okay? Also, we're going to talk about the responsibility of children as it relates to an inheritance. We're going to touch bases on those things on tonight. So I encourage you, just keep it locked right there. Going to backtrack. I had to cut an ex off because everything was always on me. In fact, I work a total of 2 jobs. And I noticed that whenever there was a dialogue between she and I, it never incorporated her doing anything to help us as a family to go to the next level. In fact, one of my exes, when she was talking to her brother, she was saying, well, Amar, when he's retired, he's going to, we're going to do this, and Amar this and Amar that, but not one time did it ever include any effort from her for us to build the empire. It was always on Amar's dollar. Okay? It never included her sowing any seed, or it was on Amar's work that we were going to get to the next level. Okay? And so you have to get rid of leeches. And what leeches do, leeches suck the life out of you so that they can live. Okay? And we have to ensure that when we have people in our lives that always want, but they never want to give, we have to ensure at some point that we make these individuals aware of what they're doing, and thereafter we hold them accountable. And so, with that being said, if we continue to allow these people to be attached to us, they will drain the life force out of us. I want to say peace and blessings to all the people that's tuning in right now at this time. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in on this evening. I know you could have been doing something else, but you chose to join the platform on this evening. So I'm hoping on tonight that you will receive something that will be empowering, encouraging, confirmation, and whatever else it is that you need in your life on this evening. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. You know, we greatly appreciate all your love and support. So now back to the subject matter at hand. If we're not careful, even our children will come to us in a posture of, you owe them something. Okay? And sometimes it's our fault. For example, when a child gets good grades, it may be a good thing for the family. It looks good. But the scope of that is that the child academically will position his or herself to be successful academically so that they can achieve what they need to achieve in the job market. Okay, also academically, when the child does well, for those who do know this, they can actually go to a collegiate level via an academic scholarship. But when every time a child does something good and you reward that child for what that child does, unfortunately, it is your fault, mom and dad, or parent or guardian, whomsoever you may be, that's raising that child up and influencing their mentality. Unfortunately, what we're doing is we're doing them a disservice by every time they accomplish something academically and you reward them for it. Unfortunately, what happens is the child only does it should you not explain this to them, why they need to get good grades. If you just continuously reward that child for getting good grades, then the child will never comprehend the reason why they need to be involved in academic excellence. They will not understand the importance of academia and having good grades. If you always just give them something, okay, well, if you get A's, then I'm going to give you these Nikes. If you get A's, I'm going to let you go on this vacation and this trip. Okay, it's okay to do that to a point, but at some point, you have to coach them into understanding the nucleus of the reason why they need to achieve high academic goals. Peace, love, and power to my good brother, Nagash Reese Rance. He said, never thought about that. So I'm glad I'm talking about it. Myself speaking from a supervisory position, having been one who served a total of 20 years in the United States Marine Corps, being a high-ranking person prior to me retiring, and mentoring people for numerous years, okay, over 20 plus years to be exact. What I've come to find is that those who struggle in adulthood in most cases was the lack of responsibility given to that adult in their adolescent years. So now that they have been released to the world and they no longer have mom and dad there to bail them out, a lot of adults today unfortunately have a mental breakdown because they don't know how to deal with the pressures of life, because mom and dad or whomsoever it is that raised that child in Never Land. Okay, never meaning that they were never held accountable. They never had to clean their room. They never had to work for what they wanted. Even when they didn't perform properly, they were still rewarded for poor performance. Okay? And so what that does is it actually hurts the child when the child enters adulthood. And unfortunately, numerically, a lot of us misconstrue that we're adults because of our age, when adulthood evolves from the maturity of your mental faculty. Maturity stems from your mindset. And if we don't raise our young people to be mature adults, when they become adults numerically, their conduct will be unbecoming of an adult, and they won't know how to function in an adult world. Children need chores. Chores, alone within itself, will not make a child mature. Now, I'm speaking from a standpoint of being a father of a 20-year-old male. Okay, also, I'm a grandfather. Okay, I have a 1-year-old and a newborn, my queen and I both. Okay, so I'm speaking from a perspective of parenting and mentoring. All right, so because my mother, when I was younger, I had chores, and I'm going to go back to chores alone is not enough, because there must be some accountability of the chores as well. So see, what we have to do, we have to touch on adulthood in its totality, right? Now, when you go to work, if you work 5 days, they're not going to pay you for 6 days. They're only going to pay you for 5 days because that's what you did, right? So if our children have chores and they do a half job, then they should only receive half of their allowance. Okay? Because what you're teaching them is a good work ethic. And you're teaching them about reality. Right? So if a child is being lazy, okay, then is it on the child or on the parent? Right? So if the parent never gives the child any responsibilities, then how can the root word in responsibility is responsible? So how can the child become an responsible adult if you don't give them responsibility? And without any accountability, they will still not be a mature adult. And then also what that person will become, they will become an incompetent spouse because they do not know how to conduct themselves and they do not know how to deal with life. So the question is, why do you help a child who does nothing, but you want to pay their way throughout life and the child is doing nothing worthy of your help? You only help those who help themselves. Okay, if he or she is in there playing on video games, okay, what are they doing to help themselves? Why do we just give, but the recipient is not even worthy of the gift? And so now you have an adolescent who now is an adult who thinks that the husband or wife should just do everything and give them everything, and they have no part in the relationship except for being a recipient. So I just wanted to come at this from a totally different angle and deal with this on tonight, whether or not we should or we shouldn't help someone, right? So now, why should we help somebody who's not doing anything to help themselves? Okay? If all they do is sit there and watch the stories all day, if all they do is play video games all day, and I'm talking about grown people right now, okay? But they come to you and every time you turn around, they need a handout. The question is, why are you always bailing somebody out who continuously keep putting themselves in that situation? See, I don't help irresponsible adults. I don't do that. I feel no conviction whatsoever of making it hard for somebody who continuously comes to ask me for something every time I turn around. I'm going to do it on my terms and I'm going to do it when I feel like it. Some people, if you don't make them uncomfortable in their comfortable situation, those individuals will never mature. Okay? At what point are they going to take the training pampers off? Right? If you never put training pampers on a child and you never teach them how to go use the restroom, you're going to be forever wiping up their defecation and their urine. And it's going to be a mess that you're going to have to continuously deal with for the rest of your life, okay? If you never teach that child where to go when it's time for them to defecate or urinate. So it's the same thing with adults who gossip, who run their mouth too much, and now somebody is ready to put their hands on them, okay? Or this person is being held accountable by somebody else because they're a troublemaker and they get kicked out of their house, or, they're lazy, they get fired from their job. So what good are you doing in this so-called quote unquote adult life by you continuously bailing him or her out? How are they ever going to learn anything from what they're doing? And the reason why you keep dealing with a mess and the reason why it stinks so much while you're dealing with that person is because you've allowed that mess to accumulate. And now it's a mound of mess that you have to continuously deal with, right? Because you have tolerated the misbehavior of this grown person and have allowed them to continue to do what they're doing. There's a situation that I've dealt with in my life personally when it comes to parenting. If the child is angry with you as a toddler and the child swings on you, if you never correct the misbehavior of that child, when that child becomes older, that child is going to run all over you, right? It's the same thing with adults who keep allowing the man or the woman to cheat on them, to slap them around, to treat them bad. And then they go right back to the person that is causing them all this pain. After they receive wise counsel, right? So riddle me this. Why are you going to rescue somebody who don't want to be saved? You can't save somebody who don't want to be saved. Check this out. If you keep going to a dead end street, right? If you go to a dead end street, you see it say dead end. Riddle me this. Why would you keep going back in that same direction knowing that it's a dead end street? What is it different that you think that you're going to find on that dead end street? It's a dead end. It's going to be the same. You turn right back around. It's going to be the same dead end street that it was the last time you had seen it. So my question is, why should people keep bailing you out of the situation in your relationships? Why should people keep wasting their time, okay, counseling you when you don't take sound advice and you keep doing what you want to do? You see? So we have to stop helping people hurt themselves, and we got to stop feeling bad about people who are not responsible. that continuously put themselves between a rock and a hard place because of the lack of maturity in their life. We have to stop coming to people's rescue and being their lifesaver. We need to allow them to drown in the sorrows of life, okay? And allow them to experience what they're going through so that way, that shakeup will allow them to grow up. Okay? So when our children don't perform like they're supposed to do, we don't need to be buying them cars. Listen, I understand this. Understand. If your child graduates with D's and C's, why are you buying them a car? Just based on the fact, well, they graduated. Oh, they made it. No, that's poor performance. That's poor performance. Okay? You don't give your child a car and you don't buy them brand new shoes when they're performing poorly. Listen, your children only warrant an inheritance if they show responsibility. We have to check the record real quick on their life before we allow them to inherit hundreds of thousands of dollars and they can't even manage $5. So see, sometimes, and I talk about this too now, you know what I'm saying? So understand, I'm expounding more on this because I talk about generational wealth too. However, okay, the empire is only there for them if they show themselves worthy of inheriting this empire. So I'm not saying not to set aside, just like we do with our savings for those of us who do, or for those of us who are preparing to retire. We do that just in case. Okay, I may live to see retirement. I may not live. But just in case, should I live until retirement, I'm going to make sure that I set myself up, because should I live up until that point, I made sure that I would be okay once I reach that point of retirement, right? Okay, so now that's what you have to do with your children. You set aside an inheritance, but the only way they should inherit it is if they're showing themselves worthy of that inheritance. Okay? It's okay for you to set aside monies for your children so when they get older, when they graduate, they'll be able to have money set aside for them that'll make their life that more easier, because they have some wealth to go out into adulthood with, right? But we got to understand that they're not worthy of it just because they are our children. See? No. And see, unfortunately, we give them a sense of entitlement if we allow them to have whatever they want, regardless of their conduct. So unfortunately, now we have programmed them to think that poor performance still means that I should still receive the blessings. When you don't chastise your child, when you let them talk to you any kind of way, okay? If you just wait till the father come home, that's a problem. That's a problem. You're programming. Okay? If you're the mother, then be the mother. That child should have equal respect of the father and mother. right? And dad, the same thing with you, vice versa. See, sometimes parents, we try to be the good guy, or the good girl. You understand what I'm saying? Sometimes parents, we unfortunately try to be, too friendly with our children, and we try to get our children to like us. And we have to understand it's not about them liking us because we're the parents. Okay? You're welcome, my queen. So we have to understand, we have to stop coming to our children's rescue too as well. Every time they cry loud and life gets hard, we got to allow them to go through some things. Okay, because they will never receive the mental strength that they need in order for them to be able to learn how to deal with life. This is the reason why so many adults today have mental breakdowns, because they're so used to somebody always patting them on the back. They're so used to somebody always coming to their rescue. They're not independent, they're dependent because they've been trained to be dependent. Now let's look at that from a spiritual perspective too. Even as spiritual teachers, we got to take the training wheels off and allow the student to be a practitioner of what they learned. They have to have their own prayer life. And this is the reason why some people, they're stagnant in their life, okay? And even in the natural sense, academia sense, are being taught in regards to how to position yourself financially, okay? At some point, there has to be some doing, okay? You can't keep giving your student who you're teaching about financial literacy, keep giving them money and bail them out of their financial crises. There has to be some accountability. At one point, are they going to implement the data that has been disseminated to them? You understand? So we have to step back and we have to allow life to become the teacher. Okay? Because understand this, some people will get so used to you feeding them, right? They can have blessings right in front of them. They can have the plate of food, they can have the fork, they can have the spoon. Okay, they can have all their necessities right in front of them. Okay? And because you're always feeding them, when it's time for them to be able to feed themselves, they are starved to death. Because as teachers, sometimes the teacher stands in the way of the student and the student will die of malnutrition. They're literally starved to death because we have not taught them how to think on their own. The student at some point has to learn how to feed him or herself. Because see, some people, they want you to do everything for them. Okay? They'll call you when they can make the call. They'll ask you to Google something when they can Google something. They'll ask you to type something when they can type something. They'll ask you to read something when they can read something. They're very well capable of doing things themselves, but they'll never know that if we continue to come to the rescue. And in my closing, there was a situation with a young man that I was mentoring. And the young man was very bright. But unfortunately, some of the people in his sphere had bought into the lie that he wasn't that intelligent. Now, because I studied this young man, I recognized that his attention span wasn't what they thought it was, because he can repeat the rap songs he heard and the R&B songs he heard, and he can remember the dances that he actually seen on the video. So I knew that far as his thinking power and comprehension, okay, that it was there, right? So one situation happened one night. The young man was told to go to the thermometer. And he went to the thermometer, but because it got a little bit intense for him, far as to read or what to do, okay, they had the lever at the top at that time before, the actual digital ones came out. It had the little lever up there. And it had the numbers there with the digits and the dials. Right? And he started crying. I don't know what to do. I don't know. I said, yes, you do. I don't know. I don't know. I said, yes, you do know. I said, what's that number right there? 75. I said, now what's those little digits in between that? I said, now if it goes to 78 and it's only 3 digits in between, then what are those next numbers? What are those next digits? What those digits stand for? I said, what come after 75? I said, that's 78 right there, right? Yes. I said, okay, so what's those digits in between? 75, 76, 77, 78. I said, okay, do it again. 75, 76, 77, 78. I said, I want you to turn that on 78. He stood there for a moment. Put his hand up there. Boom. I said, see, son? I said, you could do it. I said, but you kept telling yourself that you couldn't, but you're very well capable of doing it. I said, you never know until you try, son. And from that day forward, he was the one who dealt with the temperature gauge. He started doing it on his own. But now there's some more important lessons in life that story can evolve into. And that lesson is, should you help somebody or not? I thank everybody for tuning in on this evening. I'm yours truly, Amar Maury. Again, the founder of El Kebalan Unity Alliance, where we focus on your spiritual, your physical, and your financial well-being. And also, before I tune out, I did want to touch on this. I know I said I was going to close out, but it escaped my memory, just hit me. In regards to, I said I was going to touch on helping those who help themselves as well. And we must hold those of us who have knowledge and wisdom and understanding, spiritual, health, and in the area of wealth. We have to start holding our peers and our counterparts, our family members and friends, and all those who are in our circle, those who we know who have this information, and those who seek our help, they solicit our help. We have to start holding them accountable. Okay? Remember, help those who help themselves, right? So if they're not doing anything for the community, and I'm talking about charitable deeds, I'm not talking about every time they provide a service, because I understand a business stays in business via revenue. Okay? However, there ought to be a charitable side to your business. Okay? And this goes spiritual, health, and financial. There ought to be some time where you take out time for you to be a liberal giver and to disseminate information, because you know that it's rare, and you know that some people will not think about something until, until they're made aware of it. Okay? I'm just going to speak for myself. I was not raised to be as financial literate as I am now. Okay? No harm, no foul to my family members. Okay? They taught me what they knew. Okay? At that time. Okay? So, my supervisor pulled me aside and began to question me about whether or not I knew about stocks and, and various type of investments. Okay? For me to be able to have some residual income, to be able to accumulate wealth. Had he not, and those who other than himself had poured into me, had not spoken to me, I would have not been savvy to those financial avenues that I have learned. Okay? So we have to get away from this just because Google is out here, just because people have the internet, okay, that people are going to think about certain things. No. If we're honest with ourselves and we learn how to be humble, okay, we didn't think about certain things until somebody said something, and then we became aware of it. In fact, there's things that I had totally, completely forgotten about. And my queen, she would say something, and had she not said something, I would have totally, completely forgotten about it, because it totally escaped my mind at that time. So she brought that to my attention, and thus it sparked a thought for me to go do what I needed to do. All right. So I just want to leave that with you on this evening. I pray that you continue to have a blessed evening and also weekend. And in fact, for those who will never even tune in again, may you have a blessed life. Love you.